From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Time to talk about Myles Hartsfield and how he's pivotal to the process for this 49ers defense. I know it's not a name that, most are talking about right now, but I think it's very clear that with him coming over from Carolina, he means something to Steve Wilks and this defense. And I want to get into it a little bit. I want to hear from Steve Wilks what he had to say about Hartsfield coming to the 49ers organization and how exactly that was going to help the 49ers team. I thought it was very interesting, and I liked his wording and how he went ahead and talked about Myles Hartsfield. Hartsfield is a 5'11", 210-pound safety/nickel. By his own remarks on Niner Nation, he said he's probably going to be a safety and then at times move into the slot. And so what you get is a guy that has a lot of versatility, and that is something the 49ers definitely like on defense is versatility. This is exactly what he had to say when he talked to Niner Nation. He said pretty much safety and then get a shot at nickel. The same, how I've been, I think just the opportunity is to show that I can do multiple things like I did against the Rams last year. I played corner, and J.C. Horn was following Cooper Kupp, so when Cooper Kupp went inside, I played outside. So he's talking about his versatility to play not just safety, but also nickel, corner, and outside. And his snaps have went up over the last couple of seasons. He's doubled his snaps from 2021 to 2022 playing, for Steve Wilks. So Wilks is definitely comfortable and confident with who Myles Hartsfield is. So let's get an idea of exactly what Coach Wilks thinks about Hartsfield and why he brought him to San Francisco.
I think it's always important if you can have someone, whether it's a player or coach, that's somewhat familiar with your system or in this situation, your philosophy, and he can be an extension of you on the field, coaching the guys, also in the locker room, and then also in the classroom. So that was a important factor for me. He's a good football player as well.
He brought him over to be an extension of himself and to bring over the philosophy. I think it's very important. This is something that can go, kind of overlooked when you're talking about players that follow a coordinator or follow a head coach to a new organization, is they get to insert that philosophy. One of the things that coordinator is trying to do is get everyone to buy in to his way of doing things. And yeah, Steve Wilks is well respected amongst NFL coaches and players, but being able to insert your philosophy into the area in which you coach is very important, whether that's a coordinator or a head coach or a position player. You want people to see things and do things the way you would like. When you're coming into an already established program, it's a little bit harder. All those guys that have been there already have been learning things the way that either Robert Saleh or DeMeco Ryans wanted them to be. With DeMeco being the most recent force, they've been learning the skills and techniques and philosophies that work really well for DeMeco Ryans' defense. This is no longer DeMeco Ryans' defense. Now, Kyle Shanahan said in the State of the Union or State of the Franchise, they weren't really stripping this thing down. He kind of mentioned they weren't going to a 3-4, which signals they weren't going to go with Fangio, and that's part of the reason they went with Wilks. And one of the things that made Wilks very exciting for the 49ers brass was the fact he was willing to come into the organization and keep a lot of the set values and philosophies and things like that they were going to be able to use, and then tweak a little bit here and there. Bringing in a Myles Hartsfield is very important because he knows how Wilks operates. He was with Wilks in Carolina, and he knows the little things that he teaches. And so when he can go in there and he can be in meeting rooms and he can be on the field, he can insert that philosophy without Steve Wilks being present. What it allows Wilks to do is know that he's got somebody there that can help further along the process of inserting his philosophy into the 49ers defensive scheme. Though the defensive scheme is not changing a whole lot from what you saw from DeMeco Ryans, you still have a little bit of a different philosophy. Steve Wilks is more aggressive. He likes to blitz. He likes to bring nickel corners off of the edge. He likes to have zone eyes. That means guys who are looking back at the quarterback, because that's how you produce turnovers. And it's really hard to get those turnovers playing man coverage. You have your eyes on the receiver. You're getting your eyes up late. It kind of changes the way you go about defense. So inserting his philosophy on what he does on first and second down, what he does as far as coverage, all those little things are so important for a new defensive coordinator to get inserted into his new team. Of course, they're going to know all the terminology. He's learning all of that, and those things are going to stay the same, so the players don't have to have a learning curve. But what this does is, while they're not having to learn, they're having to learn Steve Wilks. So not learning on the field, they're learning what Wilks wants. What's he going to call in this situation? How does he want you to cover in this sort of situation? Maybe there's a little bit of technique differences that he wants to bring their way. And Hartsfield's going to be his guy on the field that can do that. And it's not like Hartsfield is not a good player. That's what Steve Wilks even said in his comments. Hartsfield's a good player. He's only 25 years old. He was drafted in 2020, or he came out in 2020. And he's a player that is still young and physical. A former running back. That's what he was actually recruited as by Matt Rule in college. He just couldn't catch the football, so he had to translate to defense. So this is a guy that has a lot of talent and is pretty physical. He's a fun player to have and watch, and he's going to do a lot on special teams as well. But the things that he's already learned from Steve Wilks have helped him. We've seen the development. He went from playing 9 games in 2021 to playing 15 games in 2022 and starting 10 of those. His snaps doubled. He got over 870 snaps in 2022. He gives up about 80% completion rate, which I'm sure, it's not the best, but it's not easy out there playing in the NFL against a lot of these really, really good football players. So I think that when Hartsfield is coming over to help the 49ers out, it's going to be very important for him to continue to work with these young players and to work with players on understanding what Wilks wants. The philosophy of being an extension is really important, because that means when Wilks isn't there, you have somebody that can think on the fly. Having someone that already knows what Wilks wants, when you get into a third and long situation or you read something in particular, he can go ahead and start helping everyone else. And what that does is increase the learning curve for every other player on the field. Players like Talanoa Hufanga and Tashawn Gibson are going to be able to learn from Hartsfield what is expected from Steve Wilks. As they learn, then Hartsfield is going to kind of maneuver into other roles and actually compete for a job. But this is going to help the 49ers defense get to where Steve Wilks wants it to be. It's always nice having guys that understand what you want and can convey that to the other players. And he felt like this 25-year-old kid had the ability to do so. I like Hartsfield. I liked his film. I thought he was a competitor who would go out there and compete with everything he's got. It's a little bit tough to make this 49ers roster. When you start looking at the safety position, they just drafted Jair Brown. George Odom is a Pro Bowl special teams player, and Tashawn Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga made up one of the best units in the NFL last year. They also have Taylor Hawkins, and then when you look at the nickel corner spot, it's not easy there because they went out and they got Isaiah Oliver. They've got Sam Womack. They've got competition in the secondary. But what he's going to mean to this defense and Steve Wilks may never actually be seen on the field by Myles Hartsfield. Myles Hartsfield may end up not making this 53-man roster. He may end up on the practice squad, or he may end up somewhere else. But the potential effects that he's going to have and the way that he's going to help this defense get to where Steve Wilks wants will be felt into this regular season. Myles Hartsfield is going to have an impact on the 49ers 2023 defense, whether he's on the 53-man roster or on the team at all, because of the things he can do during the offseason and during training camp. Do I hope he goes out there and balls out, competes, plays at a high level, and makes a huge impact for this 49ers football team? I absolutely do, because I just want the best possible players. And if one of those players is Myles Hartsfield and he's 25 years old, I love it. But understanding what Steve Wilks wants is going to be so important, and he's going to be able to convey that. I'm super excited about what he can do, coupled with veteran players that learn at a rapid pace, like Fred Warner and Tashawn Gibson. I think the 49ers transition from D'Amico Ryans to a defensive coordinator that was outside the organization for the first time in Kyle Shanahan's tenure, I think is going to be very easy because of a guy like Hartsfield. So smart move for the 49ers bringing in Hartsfield, and Steve Wilks signing off on bringing him in. Very excited about his potential in this 49ers organization on this team. Let me know what you think about Myles Hartsfield in the comment section down below. Do you like what Steve Wilks did, bringing in a guy that's going to institute his philosophy into the 49ers secondary and defense? And what exactly you think about Hartsfield's chances to make this 53-man roster? Like the video, comment if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel on the push for 4K. Almost there, about 65 away. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. There's a lot more content coming your way. Until the next one, stay safe and remember the right way is always the 49ers way.